we have to do. And body weight is a very complicated thing to regulate. I mean, we have genetics, we have a genetic, there's genetics that's involved in body weight regulation, and we have a very complex metabolic system that helps us regulate how much food we take in and how much we give off, and when we stop eating and when we start eating. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good system. But it's clear now that there's a big environmental genetic interaction with this. If you're in the situation where you have a food environment that makes control of food intake much more difficult, that there's some people respond by putting on much more weight than others. And so there's a genetic environmental interaction about maintaining body weight. And so let's look at what happened in those periods of time between 1980 or so forth up until now, in terms of why is it that suddenly in that 25 or 30 year period where everybody started putting on weight. And this shows that the calories in the food supply in this country from about 1900 up until about 1970 or 1980 was about 3,200 calories a day. That was very constant. Or if you look at all the calories that are produced, the calories that are imports and exports, how much calories were available was about 3,200 calories, up and down a little bit. In about 1980, it began to climb until now. That figure is 3,900 calories a day for every man, woman, and child in the United States, and that's what our food supply. The lower line shows that if you adjust that for wastage, because we know we don't eat all of that, a lot of that is wasted and so forth, but it's still gone up in a very substantial way. And so the food environment in this country has changed in that 25 years. And this shows a picture here. If you look at the calories per capita on the top line up there, it's going up starting about 69, 70. The introduction of large portions in our food supply started up at about that same time. I mean, food became cheap. And large portions became a way for people to get people to come in and think they're getting a big bargain and so forth. And so portions, the introduction of large portions went up quite strikingly, and I'll just give you some illustrations of that. We also ate away from home more. Food was somewhat inexpensive. People had money. They ate away from home more. And you can see the full service, so-called full service restaurants, it didn't go up much, but we ate an awful lot in McDonald's and Burger King and so forth. So the fast food industry increased a lot during that period of time. And this just gives some illustrations of what has happened in that 25 years. In 1954, Burger King was selling a hamburger which was 202 calories, and in 2004 it had gone up to 310 calories was the hamburger in Burger King. And here's a hamburger at the Heights Cafe at the Cornell. I mean, anyone who's gone to the Heights Cafe and ordered a hamburger there, I mean, you can get 3 hamburgers out of that hamburger, or more. There's at least a half a pound of meat on that hamburger. Here's a muffin. You go into a muffin, and here's a muffin that was 210 calories 20 years ago, and now it's, if you go into Starbucks or someplace like that, you get these great big things that are 500 calories if you drink with a cup of coffee with a lot of milk and cream in it. Here's a chocolate chip cookie that was 55 calories 20 years ago, and today you get these huge cookies, which you go in and you see these great big cookies. You go into a Chinese takeout and you get a lot more food, more calories. So the calorie environment in this country changed a lot in that 25-year period. People were having to cope with a new kind of environment of food, and in that situation, you differentiated people who were able to cope with that environment and those who were not. And I think that's part of the explanation why everybody put on weight. Now, the other thing that's happened, I'm sorry this slide isn't clear, but You go to Olin Library, there's a restaurant, there's a food service in Olin Library. When did we have food in libraries? I mean, you used to get killed if you taught food in the library. And you have the same thing in Mann Library, there's a restaurant there. Go to the Johnson Museum. You don't have to step very far and find some food. And that's a new development in the last 25 years. And here's the Kinney Drugs. You go into Kinney Drugs out here at the corners and you find a whole section of food. Drugstores now are full of food. And Bed Bath & Beyond, if you get to the counter and you're a little hungry, why there's some stuff right there that you can get. Or Staples, I like this Staples. Staples has this section in there, it's called Office Snacks. So there's food everywhere. And the food environment has really been something. Exercise, there's data that shows that we haven't really changed in that period. There's very little data that shows that we're not exercising as much as we did back in the 70s or 80s. There's very little data that shows that we're more sedentary. We were still watching television back in those days and so forth. So we think that people have put on weight because we've taken in more calories and that more calories have been available, and it's been very difficult to deal with the calorie environment in which we're suddenly in. And it takes, as you can see, to get rid of a 12-ounce can of soda, it takes, which is 150 calories, it takes you 60 minutes of walking at 2 miles an hour, or if you walk really fast, you can do it in about 20 minutes. So, you know, here, one of the things that person just twiddling over on the side over there is an effect of people that seem to have that burn calories by so-called spontaneous physical activity. There are people who are, people who are more nervous and fidgety and so forth. Well, that does what takes care of some calories. But probably sitting down twiddling your thumbs isn't quite enough. So that was the kind of background as to what the University of California came to us about and what Marion and I thought as we started to thinking about this book. So we've written this book which talks a lot about it. In the book there's things like the history of the discovery of the calorie. We go back to Hippocrates on some of the things about that. We talk about how you measure calories, how you measure how much we need, how you measure how much we're eating, how you determine what's in food. We go through all of that sort of thing. We talk about what happens if you eat too much, what happens if you don't eat enough. We talk about physical activity and exercise, and we talk about different kinds of diets. Does it matter whether they're low carbohydrate or high carbohydrate or low fat or what? We talk about those issues in the book, and we talk about, and then we talk about things like, well, we talk about alcohol, how much you're getting from alcohol, how that's measured, and then we also go into the issues of politics, because now there's a lot of politics around calories. Interest in perhaps, for example, putting a soda tax on to help reduce soda, because every time you take in a 12-ounce can of soda, you're taking a lot of sugar and a lot of calories, and there's some evidence that our body weight regulation system doesn't regulate these liquid calories as well as they do from other types of other sources. So there's interest in soda taxes, or Denmark just put on a fat tax. They put on a certain amount of tax depending on how much fat was in the food. So there's this politics going on around calories and calorie labeling, the kind of ways in which we label food. We talk about all this in the book. So this is not a diet book, so we don't give you a prescription as to how to diet. But we do give you some advice at the end of the book. As to, and our feel about this is how you cope with the calorie environment that you're faced with. And so we have this kind of mantra that we have up here that says you should get organized and you should eat less, eat better, move more, and get political. And let me just mention a couple of these things. How to cope with the calorie environment. We think you should get motivated. We like to see you have to be motivated. If you're going to do anything about this, you really have to be motivated. And you're fighting your biology all the time, because when you lose weight, you've got signals from your adipose tissue and so forth that says for you to restore those calories. So whenever you are trying to lose weight, you're fighting your biology. And so you have to really be motivated to be able to deal with that. And so we like to see you keep an eye on your weight. And there's groups. If you're in a group and everybody's trying to do something, you get feedback from each other and it helps to, if you're trying to lose weight, eat less. I mean, that's a common thing. You can be aware of calories, but don't try to count them. It's too difficult. And there's approximations. You can't really tell how much you're taking in. It's really too hard, even though some people do obsess on calories. And then pick a diet that works for you. In other words, it doesn't seem to make very much difference, the composition, as long as you eat less. And to eat less, we say, you can insist on smaller portions because this portion size business has been a big deal, I think, is what's out there today. There's so much food is put on your plate. And Brian Wansek in economics, or the old economics army it's called now, has done all kinds of studies that shows that if you put big portions there, people are going to eat it. And if you put it on a big plate, they're going to clean the big plate. I mean, there's all this portion size and cues that you get from the environment. You've got to keep your snacks out of the house. You really do. You can eat what you like, but you should eat better. We like to see eating fresh and whole foods rather than eating out of the supermarket center aisles. Supermarket center aisles, you go there and see what's there. And that's one of the reasons why the advice is to stay out of center aisles and don't drink your calories. So that's the kind of advice we give in the book. We go on a little bit more about that sort of thing. So anyway, we've had a lot of fun doing this. The book is now on the market. I understand you're giving away one of these as a door prize. So anyway, enjoy, and thank you so much for having me here. It's so nice to see all of you, see so many old friends and old colleagues, and I'm really pleased to see that this organization is functioning as well as it is. Thank you very much.